Hey up, and welcome to the Temple of Bleh, episode T. This is another entry into the history of Roadrunner Records collection. This conversation is with British music industry titan Miles Leonard. Miles is responsible for launching the careers of Kylie Minogue, Gorillaz, Coldplay, The Verve, and many more. He was formerly the chairman of Parlophone and Warner Brothers Records UK. But he worked at Roadrunner Records between the years 93 and 95, if I remember correctly, in that wonderful sweet spot where Roadrunner was moving away from death and thrash and all that stuff and trying to expand the horizons and take on the world and basically try and be a major label and take on many more different genres and different kinds of acts. Just wanted to thank Miles for taking the time to reflect and paint a picture of what Roadrunner was like, especially in the UK office back at that time, and reflecting on the lessons he learned while working under Case and how that would go on to affect his later career. Okay, thanks everyone. Hope you enjoy this one. 1, 2, fuck shit up.
How are you?
Yeah, not too bad, Miles. I'm sorry about that. You know what? The same thing happened to me last night. The calendar invite sent out with the link, but the recipient didn't have it hit their inbox, strangely.
All right. Well, no worries. We're here now, so good to speak to you.
Yeah, you too, mate. Well, thanks for taking the time, man. So the project itself is I'm trying to bring all the experiences and accounts of people's time with Roadrunner Records so I can try and get an understanding of how they got to what they got to. Yeah, as a metalhead, I've got kind of a special relationship with that brand because it delivered so much value to me, and I'm trying to figure out how accidental that was or how deliberate it was.
Okay.
But
where are you calling
I know
from?
you spent some. I'm calling from Leeds.
All right, good old Leeds. Okay.
Yeah. So I think in terms of your time with the label, shall we deal with it just sort of chronologically, just keep it loose?
Yeah. I mean, it's a distant memory, but I'll try and remember all I can.
Yeah. Thanks. So I know you started at Virgin and then you made the transition over to Roadrunner in 92, I want to say.
That's exactly it.
How did that happen?
How did it come about?
Yeah.
I got fired from Virgin and I just signed a band called The Verve there, who were just starting to really take off or at least, progress. And then I ended up getting fired from Virgin as a young scout for probably being a bit too cocky around at the time. And I wasn't quite sure what I was going to do. And it just so happened that at the time, Roadrunner Records were looking to branch out and start to sign probably artists in a broader field than just the metal genre. And I think probably because of what I'd done at Virgin and from signing The Verve and being on some other alternative artists at the time, when I went for the interview, I think that obviously resonated with them as probably being somebody that could sort of work in that area and help them to broaden out into that area.
Who was it who interviewed you? Was it Mark Palmer?
No, funny enough, actually, Case Wessel had hired somebody who lived just outside of London, who is a gentleman, a very nice gentleman, but, he was an older gentleman, probably in his 50s or 60s. And he was doing the interviews for Roadrunner. I don't know what his connection was with Case Wessels at all. And I must admit, it was a quite interesting interview because he was asking me just things about, when an artist goes on TV, he asked me questions about hair and makeup and stuff like that, which was really odd, but I remember it so well. And he asked me about, clothes that artists should wear if they were going to become more famous and stuff. It was an odd interview. Let's put it that way, for the job I was going for. Anyway, long story short, he recommended me to Case and Mark, and I can't remember at the time, but I think I probably went in and had a conversation with Mark then just to say hi, and it was all done. Or maybe even Case and Mark, actually. I can't quite remember. But at which point, Roadrunner Records were in a tiny little house. Their office was in a house near Westbourne Grove. in a really sort of slightly downtrodden part of London. It was in an old townhouse, and that's where their offices were. It's a rickety old, cold, threadbare carpeted house.
Was this the one that burnt down, or the one after the one that burnt down?
Oh, it probably did burn down. Well, I don't know, but I mean, it certainly didn't burn down when we were, well, not literally in it, but when we were there. I loved it as an office. You know, I went into the music industry working for Virgin Records, you know, so I was there, worked in a corporate company. I had a lovely office and company car and, you know, in these beautiful offices and whatever. And then I was literally probably about half a mile down the road in this rickety old, cold, threadbare, floorboarded townhouse, you know, and it was a real difference. But I liked it, enjoyed it. It was dirty and it was, you know, it was interesting, it was fun.
It's kind of like when you reminisce about your student days, isn't it? For me, it's just like,
a bit,
you know, I miss.
Yeah, it was a bit.
Lifestyle.
Yeah, you know, but I'll tell you what, the thing is, you know, they said, oh, look, go down the road and, you know, there's an antique shop, like an old, you know, shop that sold desks and chairs. Go and get yourself a desk and chair. And that's what I did, you know, and you know, I was grateful to have been taken on by this company. And, you know, and I was really very pleased to be working again in A&R, and they gave a chance to me. You know, I'd blown the opportunity I'd had in the record industry. You know, I did everything I wanted to be was in the music industry. And I got a record in Virgin. I signed what I thought was a brilliant act. Well, they are a brilliant act, and then, you know, I was just too cocky, and then I got fired, you know, and it was like, oh, I'd lost everything that I wanted. And then, you know, Roadrunner had taken me on, and I loved it. You know, I loved the fact there was only probably about 5 of us in this office. You know, there was the 2 girls that did press, and then there was Mark, and then, you know, there's probably 5 of us. And it expanded a little bit, and then we moved to an office over near Acton, which was in a modern office, you know, and it was like, wow, we're really going up. But the remit I had from Case and Mark was, you know, we want to broaden into alternative rock music, you know, indie rock music, and that's what I want you to do. And they brought somebody else in the United States, their Roadrunner office, to do the same. And you know, that's where we were going. You know, I think the thing with Roadrunner is, in Case was the first person I know in the industry, and there may have been others, but I know that his record deals were where you signed the publishing, you signed the merchandise, and you signed records, and you did that all for a minuscule amount of money. And he built a very strong business on that, you know. And I think with the artists that they were signing, those metal bands, there was only probably 2 other labels that are in the ball game to sign metal acts at the time, you know. So and they had a good merchandise company, and, you know, that was their business model, and they were doing that before anyone talked about 360 deals, you know. There wasn't even, you know.
Yeah.
So the only thing is that the bands and the artists that, you know, that I was looking at and wanted to look at, well, they just weren't doing those sort of deals, you know. They didn't need to, because they had the big major labels offering them just a deal for records only, no merchandise, no publishing, and so it was hard to compete.
Andy Saunders he expressed the comparison between Roadrunner, which was usually about between 3 and 5K advance for 6 or 7 albums, as you say, pretty much everything 360 before 360. And then when he went to Creation, it was, okay, well, we've got the overheads, and then after that it's 50-50 with the artist. And that for him was like, oh, such a breath of fresh air, because he could actually approach the negotiating table with some clout. Was that the main challenge that you faced when you were working with Case?
Yeah, it was. You know, I understood their business model, and I didn't knock it. The problem was we were trying to bring that business model and those deal terms into a world, as I say, where that just wasn't acceptable on the table, at least for anyone that was in a competitive deal. I remember Supergrass at the time were just looking for a deal around then. and really wanting to sign them, but it was one thing trying to get them to understand we're going to sign to a heavy metal label, or metal label, that's one hurdle. But then it's another hurdle when you've got EMI offering them £100,000 for for 6 albums and 100,000 per album. We're saying, well, we'll take everything for 20 grand. Why would they do it? So it was difficult. So then you had to try and fish in a different pool, and you had to try and find artists, earlier, and really try to say, okay, we're going to go into this market, but we've got to find artists that are early and see if we can nurture them and bring them through and build that. So I think there were 2 bands that signed there. One was called Pet Lamb, who are from Ireland, that Steve DeMac was really championing at the time. And there was a band called Wormhole as well. They were a bit like the band Pavement that were around at the time. And we did a couple of electronic things as well, because they had the electronic label that was through
Third Mind.
Sorry? Third Mind, well done, yeah.
Third Mind,
yeah.
Gary Livermore, yeah.
Yeah, and Gary was doing that, and Gary was such a specialist in that area, that very black, dark, it wasn't house or techno or sort of what was the modern electronic dance music that was happening in the late 80s, early 90s. He was working in a very sort of darker, niche area, but he was doing what he was doing. He was doing that very well. I really liked Gary, and I sat in an office with him and used to, and we were just having to scour and try and find artists that were just not on anyone's radar, at all.
Yeah. And it must be tough going to Supergrass and going, hey guys, we can get you on tour with Sepultura. Yeah. If that's the brand.
It just doesn't fly, So, look, I think I understood why Case wanted to broaden out, but I also understood why he had a business model that worked. He wasn't going to throw it all away, certainly on a young, kid like myself at the time, who was, bringing in these bands. So we had to try and, it was a kind of a sort of a pool and we were trying to do it. And, if I go back again with the experience and knowledge I had now, I think we would have done it in a different way. I don't mean in terms of what you'd spend, but the approach. But I was very young then and didn't have a great deal of experience. I knew what was a great band, I knew great artists, but I think I would have approached it in a slightly different way.
Are there any missed opportunities where perhaps you saw some acts which I might have heard of today, which Case went, I'm not feeling it?
No, Case never questioned the artist. Case never questioned the style or, what I was looking at. He questioned the deals, because I was always trying to push him on those, So we'd always question the deals we had. I don't recall him ever, sort of in a creative way getting too involved. They were signing some stuff out in Europe as well that was quite interesting, and I think they even signed. Did they sign Deus back in the day as well? And or later on, and look, I can't sit here and say, look, there was something that I had absolutely on the table, this band, and we lost them because it was Roadrunner. I think that there was stuff I brought to the table, and there was just some stuff I just knew I just didn't have a chance. There's a band we really came close to called Understand, and they were managed by Nathan McGough, who managed the Happy Mondays. And Understand were this new sort of straight edge band coming out from London, who, were really sort of emulating what was coming in from that sort of straight edge sound from the US. They were brilliant. I absolutely loved them, and they, from me, that was a band that had they understood the metal. They recognized the artists that we had on Roadrunner. They probably had them in their collection, or at least some of them. But also they had something young. They were all about 19, 20 years old, and they were making loud British, straight edge, rock, but with a slight alternative side. So they were the perfect hybrid. And I chased them up and down the country, and they're managed by a brilliant guy called Tank. And, they were just amazing. We came really, really close to signing them. And, you know, look, at the end of the day, Warner's at the time really wanted to sign them, and it was just a very difficult conversation for them. They had £120,000 on the table against our 30, you know, and so I get it. You know, I could never really, you know, but I thought that we were really close to getting them, and it was, you know, look, they actually never went on to having big success. I could argue that there's one band that probably might have done, should they have been on probably not a major label, which didn't quite understand it, but on a smaller label where they would have been allowed to grow, where they wouldn't have done a deal that would have strangled them from the beginning, and they would have been amongst people within a label. You know, our brilliant press girl, Lisa, at the time was just amazing. And, you know, the thing about Roadrunner is, I remember the very small wins in that company were the big wins. You know, we got the front cover of a fanzine and we were all jumping up and down, and we were really excited, you know, about that. You know, when I was in Virgin, no one got excited unless you're on the front cover of the NME or Q magazine or Select or whatever it was, you know, and so when we got these small wins, and that's the thing about an independent label as well, you know, everyone helps everyone else. You know, if there's somebody packing records to send out to the press, you all stand there and put the stickers on the labels and you help out. And I that for me was a huge learning curve. You know, my whole career and everything that I've ended up subsequently going on to do, I always revert back to my experience at Roadrunner about, you know, make every penny count, you know, muck in, get involved, you know, don't just say, well, this is not my remit, you know, and make the small wins be the wins that also really count as well.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I mean, so 2 years with Roadrunner is pretty good innings, especially at that time, because it was a weird growing pain for the label. How did your relationship with the label end?
Well, you know what? It ended actually because Parlophone asked me to come and join their A&R team. They'd actually seen me chasing around the country, Understand, the band that I just mentioned. I think they really liked them.
Okay.
They really liked them as well. And I think they thought, wow, God, you know, considering you are the underdog at a small label, you know, I think you really punched above your weight in terms of really trying to get them. You know, you gave the majors a run for their money. And so they called me and just said, look, we want you to come and work for Parlophone. We want to offer you a small label that you can have as your own little label, an independent label on the side of working for us. And, you know, I realized after 2 years at Roadrunner, as much as I loved the people, loved the place, and they gave me that opportunity, I think I could see and realize that what they wanted to do was going to be tough. And I didn't have the 5 or 10 years to give them to you know, try and get it to that point. And, you know, and here was a label offering me an opportunity to have both an independent label of my own plus working at the major. So I actually then, you know, handed my notice in and left. But it was with, as I say, it was with a heavy heart that I did.
Yeah,
I really questioned it. I really questioned it. I remember talking to people saying, I've been offered this job at Parlophone. Parlophone are amazing. You know, they've got these great artists. It was at a time when, you know, but I don't know, you know, I've worked for an independent now. I love the independent spirit. I love what this is about. And I really questioned it. I nearly didn't go, you know, and then a couple of people said, Miles, you're crazy. Don't we, you know, you got to do it.
How did Case respond to that? Because from the conversation I've had, especially with the UK stuff, he adopts quite a paternal sort of role. And he does, and you mentioned it yourself in terms of what you learn. He seems to be very, very invested in the development of his staff and his guys. So I bet he was kind of chuffed that he had an opportunity like that.
Yeah, I don't. You know what? He was. You know, he wasn't. He understood it. He got it. He didn't question it. You know, he had the grace to, you know, accept it and understand and wish me all the best. You know, and then nothing but, you know, just hope it all works out for you. And actually, you know, I got a message from him down the line a few years later when I got promoted somehow, and he just said, I'm glad this, you know, whatever this has happened and it's all worked out. You know, Case really did look after his people. You know, he had nothing, as from what I could see, is their best interests at heart. You know, I think that the UK was, I thought the American label felt it was more forward thinking and it was more progressive than we were, and it was the dominant label, and a lot of the artists were all coming from the US, so we were really on the back foot a little bit by not having a great deal of repertoire. We were really having to work hard to suddenly start signing and building our own artists. But we did, I think, as a label, Mark Palmer, he ran a tight ship, and he knew. I mean, Mark knew how to run Roadrunner, and he ran it just with military precision, really. But I think when we started to like expand and move and look into try and do that, we never quite did it, because didn't have long enough to do it. I think that's when we probably would need to look what we were going to do in the UK to change it, because if it was going to become something other than a metal label. But there was a band Dog Eat Dog at the time, who were also young and had a fresh sound and approach, and that's probably the first time he actually got a Radio 1 playlist, and got the MTV awards and whatever. So there were little things where we were starting, the band Pet Lamb that I signed, they went on tour with Therapy at the time, and Steve Lamacq really championed them, and we were just doing little things, but the thing is I think when you got a real metal label and then you sign a metal act, you've immediately got, this is going to be great because it's got the imprint on it. We hadn't necessarily built that name in the alternative world.
Yeah, that appears to be the challenge, and that's kind of what maybe drew him back to doing metal, perhaps maybe in that latter part of that decade. Do you still have a relationship with the label now that they're under Warner?
No, although I then ran the Warner label in the UK, and Roadrunner were part of that, but there was no connection with Case or any of that team. Sure. And we had a guy called Danny who ran it, and he did it well and still does it well. But it came under my remit. But it was funny that it was there. It kind of made me smile that it had come back under my wing as a label. But only with nothing but just admiration for it.
Yeah, man. Last question, and I can let you go. Have you ever seen a ghost?
Never. No, I haven't ever. And actually, to be honest with you, when people actually talk to me about that sort of thing, I tend to switch off because I just don't believe in it.
I've asked everyone that, and the answers range from people sending me pictures of weird stuff they've seen to answers such as yours. All right, man. Thanks for that. That was exactly the territory I wanted to explore. Exactly the experience I was happy for you to relay. Am I right just sending this up onto the podcast, YouTube? I don't even think I need to edit it. Nothing contentious was said.
I don't think so. No. All I'm going to say is you're more than happy to. I enjoyed my time at Roadrunner. I got nothing but admiration for, Monty, who was out in the States, and Case and Mark and all Lisa and all the team that are in the UK. I think it was a brilliant experience, albeit short-lived, and Gary, who was there as well, a really great team and a great learning curve for me. And I think it grounded me again in the industry. So then when I then started again at Parlophone, I had a huge learning experience, which I kept with me, all the way through my career from working at Roadrunner.
Yeah, it's a special place.
It certainly is. All right, good to talk to you.